we go. Move my zoom to the other screen. Okay. All right, so managing high-level snapshots the right way. And so today I am going to go over importing snapshots into your agency account. Probably everybody knows how to do that, but we'll just do a quick kind of recap on that. And then I'm going to show you guys how to set up a blank master account and then create a blank snapshot from master that you can use to link to your client accounts, which makes things easy to do updates and that kind of stuff. So we'll learn how to refresh snapshots and then push updates to linked sub accounts. So let me bounce out of this for a minute here. I'm going to resize my window so Zoom isn't hiding. And okay, so the first thing that you'll have to do is, and I'll go to the mirror board here. So first step in this whole process is, regardless of what snapshot you're working with, you're going to want to import that into your agency account. And so let me flip over to Highlevel here. I'm going to go to my snapshots and I'll just give you guys kind of like a preview of what this looks like. So I'm going to work with this snapshot that Extendly recently released, the A2P Agency Lite for the SMS compliance. And so let's say that we had a share link. So this is what you guys would have got. We shared a permanent link. And so you guys would have got a link kind of like this. And so if I just copy this link, so to import it into your agency dashboard, when you paste this link in to your URL bar and you hit go, it's going to load up. Let's wait for the screen to load here. Chat too. Let's see, what is the chat? Okay, cool. Okay, so this is, so if you're already logged into Highlevel, this is the screen that you'll see. It'll say, yes, import now. Now, if you're not logged into Highlevel, you're going to get like a little Highlevel affiliate page where it asks you to log in first. And it'll also show you that page if you pardon me, if you use the same email address to log into multiple Highlevel accounts, because it's going to need to know what Highlevel account to actually, which agency account to put the snapshot into. So if the email address that you're using is only linked to one agency account and you're signed in, you'll go straight to this. But even if you're signed in, if it's linked to multiple accounts, then you'll still be taken to the Highlevel affiliate page where you'll have to essentially kind of log in and select which account you want to import it into. And so once you've imported it in, I'm going to go back just to kind of get out of that. Then if you go in your agency dashboard, if you go to settings and then snapshot, the snapshot will be here, but it won't be in my snapshots. It will be under imported snapshots right here. So it'll be in your imported snapshots, not in my snapshots, just for clarity. So so to go back to our mirror board here, so that's the first step. So that's how you do the first step. Now, regardless of whether you are trying to update an existing client account or you are, wanting to use the snapshot for a new client account, I get the question all the time, like, should I just, take that snapshot and put it straight into my client account? And I typically say absolutely not. The reason is because you don't know, if you're getting a new snapshot, first of all, you have no idea what's in the snapshot. So, you don't know what workflows are going to be published, which workflows aren't going to be published, if they're going to conflict with anything that's in your client account already. And so, and plus you just want to be able to see what you're getting, before you start putting it in client accounts and stuff like that. You want to be able to kind of like use it yourself, play around with it. So this sort of procedure that I've put together for you here is what I recommend doing no matter what. And so after you've imported it, the next thing you want to do is create a blank sub account, and you can title it master. So if we go back to our agency dashboard, I'll just go through this whole kind of process with you guys. So if we go to sub accounts, if I go to add new sub account, I'm going to select blank snapshot. This is important. Do not put any snapshot into the blank account. So select blank snapshot. Then you can just add account manually, and then I'll just punch in my stuff real quick here. And then I'm just under business name, this is basically going to be the title of the sub account. So we're just going to do, I'm just going to call this Facebook demo, since I'll do actually I'll do extend link training.
Would you name that the master account so you know all the time?
Yeah, exactly. So this one would be the one that you do master. And a lot of times I'll do like stars like this. Then I'm just for my own sake gonna put extend link training because I'll need to delete this account later. And then I just have a little fake address here. Kansas City, which is where I am. Surrey. And we'll give it a time zone. All right, so there is our blank account. So this is our blank account. There's nothing in it. Okay. Now, while there is nothing in it, what you're going to want to do is now go back to settings and back to snapshot. And now what you're going to do is create a new snapshot. And then you'll call this master blank. And then you'll want to build this based on the master that you just created. So there's our extend link training master that we just created. Okay, now for the sake of this training, I'm going to create kind of like just a demo client account. And so I'm going to create one more sub account that we can use to kind of act like it's a client account, right? And for this, I'll just do another blank account, but it's supposed to simulate one of the client accounts that you guys might have that already has content in it. And so we'll do this client account, and I'll do extend link training. Select our state. Yeah, so this is our client account. Okay, so just as a recap, if I flip back to the mirror really quick, so we've done this, we've imported the snapshot, we've created a blank sub account titled master, we created a snapshot from the blank master account, and then now is where we come to a decision tree. Is this a new account or is this an existing account? And so if it's an existing account where we're wanting to update a client account, which this is the more likely scenario, and there's actually just only one difference. You're basically just going to be importing into an existing account instead of creating a new sub. I'll go through this branch in a second, but since most folks are going to be trying to update an existing client account with that snapshot that they got, we're going to go down this path first. So import blank snapshot, into existing client account. So that's the first thing that we do. So the great thing about this is, so if this is our client account, right, the one that we just created just for this training, what we can do is take that blank account that we created. So if we go to the client account, so if you're looking at your list of sub accounts, you can search for whatever account, that you're wanting to load the snapshot into. And so this is our client account. So what you'll do is hit manage client, and then you're going to go to actions and then load snapshot. Then you're going to search for the blank that you created. Let's see, where is that? Let me make sure that it's there. 1 second. So I didn't see it in the list. Oh, here it is. I'm gonna just title this extendly training so I don't lose my mind. Okay. So we're gonna go back to our sub accounts, and then we're gonna go to our demo client account. Here, manage client, then we're gonna do load snapshot, and then we're gonna search for our extendly training one. So just as a reminder, so when you do this, when you go to load the snapshot, there's nothing actually being loaded in because you created a blank snapshot. So we're not at the point yet where we're actually loading the real snapshot. All we're doing right now is just linking the client account to the master account that we created. And I'll show you that in a second. So if I hit proceed, there's going to be some custom fields and review conflicts. Just skip. Let's see here. Actually, so this is kind of like a little bit tricky. So these conflicts have to do with like updates that Highlevel has actually done to their system. And if you decide to skip everything, then it's going to not allow you to move forward. So see if it lets us. Yeah. So what you can do though, would it let us know? So as long as there's just like one thing that you're actually pushing through, it'll let you move forward. So you can, depending on whether or not you want to push Highlevel's new custom fields into the account or not, you can make that decision for yourself. But you can always pick like a pretty safe one, for example, like time zone. Time zone's going to be pretty safe if you skip everything else but time zone. That's going to have like pretty low impact. Probably another one you could do is like potentially country. I would just, what you're trying to do is basically reduce the impact to your client account. You want to try to do this without disturbing anything that's going on. So like what's going on in your client accounts the best. Nevertheless, you just have to select something and then you can proceed. It'll tell you like, hey, there's like, since we only selected, 2 things, there was no conflicts. Now, since we're going to a blank account, if we selected everything and we hit proceed, then the only thing that it's probably going to give us a conflict on is miscall text back, because that always gives a conflict when you go to do snapshot imports. So anyway, when you get to the conflict screen, that's where when you're on this step, if you want to go ahead and select all, it's not actually going to be done until you get to the conflict screen and decide if you want to move past any conflicts. If you don't see any conflicts, you can just move forward. It's going to not, there's going to be no impact to your account. So anyways, all that to say, so we could push that blank snapshot into the client account. And so now what we have, if we go back to our snapshots, and so we have this master blank extendly training. And so this was our blank snapshot that we just pushed to an account. Now, do you see this little button that says push update to linked accounts? So if we click on that button, now notice how this is now a linked account. So we can push an update to that linked account. Now there is no updates right now because it's still just blank, right? And so if I was to hit proceed, it's just going to show me the same stuff that we already saw. It's like, well, there's nothing new in that snapshot, right? And so if we go back to our mirror board here, so now that that's done, we need to now update. We need to import the needed updates into the master account. So, in theory, let's say you have like 30 clients. So what you'd want to do is you'd want to go through the process of pushing that blank snapshot to all 30 of those clients manually. That has to be done manually. But the time that it's going to take to do that is going to be way lower than trying to actually push a full blown snapshot into each of those client accounts, because then you're going to have to be dealing with conflicts on every single one of those accounts. But if you push a blank snapshot to those accounts, super low impact. Now you have all accounts linked to one master. So if you want to do updates to all of your client accounts in one swoop, now they're all linked up. Most people don't even know that you can link them like this. I know I didn't even know this until like a few months ago. So let's say that this recent snapshot that we gave to everybody for free, this A2P agency light, let's say we wanted this snapshot in all of our client accounts. This snapshot's pretty lightweight, it just comes with like a few custom fields, like one funnel, stuff like that, a few tags. And so we need to get this into the master. So if we go back to our sub accounts, and then we have our master extendly training. So if we go to manage client, now we can go load snapshot, and we can bring in our A2P agency light into the master. And so we're going to bring that into the master. We're going to select everything because we're going to want to bring everything in. And then we could proceed. We'll skip out on miscalled text back. We don't want to overwrite that. We'll just proceed with that. And so now we have our ATP stuff inside the master. So the first thing you want to do before you actually, worry about pushing this to any of your clients is actually go look at the snapshot. If you have a fresh master, then there's not going to be any other content in there except for the snapshot that you just put in there. So it's very easy, to go to like automation, for example. It's like, okay, what workflows are included here? Okay, we have a few workflows. What about funnels? Okay, it looks like we have a funnel. What about our tags? Okay, so we have 3 tags. What about custom fields? Any custom field folders? No. Okay, any custom fields? And you can just kind of like, look through basically and figure out. I think there's only one custom field in this snapshot, for example, which is, where is it? Actually, I think the custom field was on the, I don't remember if it was in this one or if it was on the client account. I think it was actually in the client account, not this one, not the agency light. Nevertheless, just look through the snapshot, make sure you know what you're actually going to be putting into your client accounts before you do it. And so now we'll flip back to our agency view, and we're going to go back. So we know the snapshot now lives in the master, right? Okay, so just because the snapshot lives in the master doesn't mean that this master snapshot blank that we built before we imported the A2P light in there has been updated. What I mean by that is this still contains the blank snapshot that we first built, even though there's now new content in the account. So for us to grab the new content that's in the account, what we need to do is refresh the snapshot. And so before I do that, I just want to show you. So if I go to here, so the account that's linked to this, right, the extendly training sub, if I go to push update to all linked accounts and I hit next, like it's still the same stuff. It's not seeing any of the new changes that we just put into that account. But I want to show you if I go back here and I refresh this. So it's going to say, are you sure you want to update the snapshot? And all that's going to do is basically rebuild the snapshot with new content that's in the account. So it just rebuilt it. So now if I go to push updates to linked accounts, now I have all the new content from that snapshot, and I can just push that to the linked accounts. And so this makes it easy, right, to update all your client accounts. So here we have the refresh snapshot. That's the step we just did. And then update linked accounts. That's the last step. So the only difference between that whole flow that we just did and this sort of bottom tree here is instead of like this is import blank snapshots into existing client accounts. And this is create a new sub account using the blank master snapshot. And so instead of that process we went through of importing the blank into existing accounts, if for some reason you have a new client, you know, and you haven't created a sub for them yet or something, you still need to do that. Then when you go to actually create the sub, instead of clicking blank snapshot, you can build it on your blank master. And so, but now the master's not blank, right? Because we just imported that into it. So it's not blank anymore. But it because it's a new account, it doesn't matter, you know, because there's no impact. So we can go ahead and put all this content in there and not have to worry about conflicts or anything like that. So you can kind of think through this flow for yourself and you know what would work out best for you. But typically this whole conversation of like, where do I put the snapshots when I import them in? Do they need to go to their own account? Can I put them in a client account right away? How do I update client accounts? Like that whole thing gets people really tangled up pretty bad. So hopefully this was helpful. That is it. That is it for this sort of little micro training on the on the snapshot management. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I'm going to stop the share here for a second and go to the chat. Let's see here. Okay, Heidi User said, how do you remember if it is actually blank? I keep a log myself, like every time I do that, in Airtable, of every time that I hit that refresh button, then I just like you could do it in a spreadsheet, but I just add another row and then I version it. So it's like, what happened in this version? What did I add? So that's just for my own sanity. Like you could see, if I go back here, you could see, you know, with our snapshots in here, you could see here how like, you know, see this is version 1.5. And so these are all versioned out, version 1.0, 1.0. So
So
for
if
the
you
A2,
push it, will it, and you change the name of it, will it push it to the old name?
well, so you would want to change, the name of it when you refresh it. So what you would do is like go in here to edit the snapshot. And so like, for example, this is what I would do. I would say, so blank extended training. And then I would do like V1.1. And then I would hit refresh. And now this is version 1.1. But if I go and I change the blank to something else, like I load something else to it, you know, then I would version this to 1.2 and I would just keep in a spreadsheet, well, what happened in 1.2, you know?
So it's linked to that one, even if you rename it something totally different.
Yeah, you can rename the snapshot name itself to whatever you want, and it's still going to stay linked to the whatever sub account it was
Got
linked
it.
to.
So you can name it blank and then change it to not blank after you put something in it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. But in general, like this procedure is good anytime you have a new snapshot.
Okay.
To always start with a blank, like a blank master, especially if it's a snapshot that you intend to roll out to all your client accounts. Um, you can start with a blank account, get it linked all up to your client accounts, then load that new snapshot that you got into the master, and then roll it out, to all the client accounts that way, as opposed to going to every client account individually and doing it that. Now there is I guess the advantage of rolling it out manually to every client account. I would still recommend loading the new snapshot into a blank account always, no matter what.
Mhm.
With respect to the rollout, though, if it is something that you want more granular control over conflicts, like on a sub account by sub account basis, that would be a use case where rolling it out like to each sub account one by one would be probably worth doing. But like in the case of like the A2P Lite, for example, that one's not going to create any conflicts. It's a pretty lightweight snapshot. It can be rolled out. We've had people ask like, okay, I have 2,000 sub accounts, so it's like rolling it out one by one to every sub account would be like a multi-week long ordeal just for that. So, but if somebody has like only 10 accounts or 30 accounts or even 50 accounts, they could roll it out one by one over the course of a few days and not a huge deal. So,
So this saves time because it'll just go. It won't stop at every conflict because that's already been done when you put the blank one in.
yeah. And, one other thing that's nice too is like, it's nice to keep a blank account linked to all your client accounts, in my opinion, and just have that ready in case you need to push something to all your client accounts quickly, even if it's just like a small thing. Uh, so you want to push it out to all the client accounts at once, in a 24-hour period of time or something. If you have a blank account that's just kind of like on deck and ready to do that, then you can always just put something into that blank account and then roll it out. So a lot of people do that, just have it kind of waiting for a situation where they need to use it. So
You would leave whatever is existing in it and then just add to it, or you would delete everything in it first.
you can just well, you can just start with a blank account that has nothing in it and link it and push that, like create a blank snapshot from that and push it to the client accounts.
Mhm.
And from there, like that blank account is then the snapshot that you built on that blank account is linked to all the client accounts. And so if you just had, one workflow or something like that that you wanted to roll out to all the client accounts, you could just drop it in the blank account, refresh the snapshot, and then push it to all the linked accounts pretty easily.
And would you do something separate for each thing? Like this is the compliance right now. Would you do another blank account for other things, or no, you just use that one blank account and have all the clients be the same?
All right, say that again. I'm turning my volume up here a tiny bit quiet.
Would you make a blank account like if you did something dramatically different? Or I mean, I know this is just compliance. So would you have a blank account for compliance, or you would just put that all everything that you build ongoingly would just be added to the blank account? So it'd be a master account of exactly what's in everybody's account.
Uh, if you have, I think what I would do is, so okay, so if you're only doing like one niche for everyone, so you're like an agency that's just like a one nicher, then having one master that's linked to all your clients and always building in master and rolling out updates that way makes a ton of sense. And you can cut, but you do need to, like if you deal with multiple niches, you sort of need to have one master account for every build type. And then if you bring in a completely new snapshot, where you're going to be adding like an addition on, like, like we're rolling out, for example, automation library here soon, and everything's going to be very modular. Someone might get like one module, they might get another module, they might start adding on and stuff like that. And so in that case, you would, probably want to have like one master account for each module. And so I guess what I'm saying is you have to differentiate by functionality, because you don't want to have to be like picking and choosing, well, I'm just going to take this part of master and put it in this account, and then this other part of master and put it in this account. So however many like versions of a build that you have that you need to roll out to clients, if it's like one version, great, keeps things easy. If it's 5 versions, then you kind of have 5 masters,
Great, thanks.
Yep.
Quick question. So as you basically keep adding on, let's say something new to the snapshot, you essentially just update the version number for that master blank snapshot and then push it out and then continue that process as you keep adding more things.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah, so I'll reshare real quick. So our convention is, we basically, it's like snapshot name by extendly, and then if it's an agency account or a client account, because you might be saving snapshot variations for your own accounts also, so we delineate agency or client, and then the version number, and then that's where we have version notes saved separately. And then whenever we released it, or whenever not released it, whenever we had built it, basically. So like, when was version 5 built? It was built on this date. And then will just be a table, that we have with all that in there.
Got it. In terms of just these calls in general, by the way, because like I'm new to this, I basically just joined last week, and the first call I hopped on was actually the A2P update. So essentially how this works is you cover like a topic, and then we just ask questions about what you covered, right?
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, and sometimes people will just ask completely different questions. But yeah, I try to and other folks might do it a little differently, but at least in terms of how I do it is I try to do questions on whatever we talked about like directly afterwards, and then we kind of just open it up to other questions for 10 or 15 minutes, see what people have on their minds.
Okay, I do have other questions, so let me know when that happens.
Cool, man. We're probably about at that point, but is there anyone else real quick on the call that has any questions about this before Rob asks some other stuff?
That was great. I didn't know that existed. I couldn't figure out where you were going, but it was really amazing. I like that.
Thanks, Heidi. I was hoping that people would like that. I was like, oh man, I got all excited earlier. I was like, I can't believe I didn't think about this. This is gonna be great. All right, I don't think anybody else has anything else, Rob, so go for it, man.
Cool. And agreed. Yeah, this is absolutely amazing. I love this. But okay, so in terms of A2P and email, so I'm like pretty new to GoHighlevel. I've been aware of it, but like really diving into it deep over these past couple of weeks. And just had a question with regards to this A2P like stuff. So I did download the snapshot. I haven't loaded it yet. However, in terms of like in general, when it comes to like texting and email subscriptions, right, and being able to, send marketing messages, do people need to specifically opt in for that? Or like, how does it work with, for example, like, do they need to opt in with a form, or what happens for a business if they have an existing customer base?
So the main thing so A2P and email are kind of completely different. Like email has, their own regulations, and then texting in the United States has their own regulations. Texting has been so far pretty kind of like free game. Anybody can do whatever they want. And that's what the carriers are trying to stop, is all the like spam messages and stuff like that. And so the main thing to like be aware of with the texting is businesses that aren't registered will not be able to send messages anymore after August. And so that's like sort of like the major thing to keep in your brain is like businesses have to be registered. So if you're an agency, your clients have to be registered, or else they won't be able to text. Now, so that's like point number one. After that, after point number one is, okay, so after they're registered, well, and actually during the registration process, the regulatory body that has been kind of hired by the carriers to manage the registration, they are going to want to see examples of how you are, how your clients are following the rules, basically, for their registration to be approved. And so one of the things that they want to see is that, customers are opting in. That's like the biggest thing is like, they don't want any text messages going out unless there was an opt-in. There's some gray area there. The gray area is sort of like transactional text messages, meaning like let's say you buy something, and you get a text that's like, hey, thanks for your purchase. It was like kind of like a receipt confirmation type of deal. So some of the gray area around that is like, do people have to opt in for transactional messages like appointment confirmations,
Right.
that type of thing. And I think kind of the consensus right now is, at least for the registration process, it's safest to sort of act like you are forcing opt-in in every case. In practice, like after registration has been approved, I have a feeling that most people are going to try to get away with sending transactional messages without soliciting the opt-in. But one of the things, after the registration, one of the biggest things that they're going to be looking at to see if you're following the rules, because there's not, there's not enough bandwidth for any regulatory body to look at every single text message. And so one of the sort of like main metrics that they're going to be looking at to see if you're following the rules is hard opt-outs. Like if people are replying with stop, and if you have a high percentage of those, they're going to look and they're going to see like, okay, well, why are they getting so many stops? Like, are they actually even asking for opt-ins, or like what's happening? And that's where you can get, in trouble. But that you can get in trouble for that whether you are or are not soliciting for opt-ins. The good news is like, at least the data we've seen is like most of the hard opt-outs aren't happening with transactional messages. Like most people are totally okay with receiving appointment reminders, confirmations, purchase confirmations, all that stuff. Like most of the hard opt-outs come with, like database reactivation blasts, cross promotional blasts, like that type of stuff is where people are pretty quick to say stop. So now on the email side, it's kind of similar, like Mailgun, which powers Highlevel. So like if you're using Lead Connector, you're basically using Highlevel's hosted version of Twilio and Mailgun. And so Mailgun powers the email. Mailgun is going to penalize you if you're receiving email unsubscribes, if you're getting high numbers of bounce rates. They call like the actual like email terminology is like when someone complains. So like an unsubscribe, a mark as spam, those are like categorized as email complaints. And if the percentage of email complaints as it starts to increase, then they start to degrade your deliverability. So they're going to put you on IP addresses that are lower in quality, aren't going to get out to as many people. And then eventually Mailgun will just kick you off the server and tell you can't use the service anymore. And since Highlevel is going to try to manage their servers in the same way, like if because Highlevel can't afford to have their master account for everybody's Highlevel accounts get banned, right? So like they're gonna be kicking people off as well if email unsubscribes and spams are too high and stuff like that. So
Right.
Now,
So,
Bayant,
oh, go ahead. No, go ahead, Heidi.
Bayant mentioned, suggested that instead of using these hard words, even if we're requesting it, if we put stop, they're going to pick up and it's going to be a negative. He suggested using out. Now I know right now we have to use those words, otherwise that's how we get approved. But at some point, should we be changing to out? Or because he said that would be a benefit if we're saying out, they're going to look at it as engagement, and they're not going to pick it up as a hard stop. Whereas all the quit stops and stuff like that would, I know we have to use it now, but how long do you think we could go before we switch to that?
Well, I mean, right after approval.
Okay.
Like, I mean, using so the sort of like industry word for that is a soft opt-out instead of
Mhm,
a hard
yeah.
opt-out. And so you can use like at least right now you can use a number of like soft opt-out words which so the reason why people do that is because if somebody hard opts out, like they reply with stop, then they get opted out, they get D&D'd on the Twilio level. Not like, so it happens on the Highlevel also, meaning Highlevel will automatically flag the SMS channel as D&D. But like, if you tried to send a message afterwards that said like like it used to be, you probably used to see this when you used to hit stop, you'd get a message back that said sorry to see you
Yes.
go. But now, like after someone says stop, you can't send them any more messages. So you can't even say like sorry to see you go. If you try to send another message, it'll air out. And so once someone hard opts out, not only does it D&D you on the SMS channel, but also like if you were planning to use that phone number to call them, well, now you're D&D'd on the call channel also. And so part of the strategy around using soft opt-out is to not only to like, I mean, you're worried about like getting too many hard opt-outs, but you also don't want to lose that ability to, text them or call them if you want, so a soft opt-out is a way of basically letting them tell you that they're pissed that you're sending them so many text messages without them actually blocking themselves on the carrier level from you being able to communicate with them any longer, if that makes sense.
That's interesting. So if anyone just texts stop
Mhm.
at the actual Twilio level, you can't even connect to that phone number at all in any way.
Yep. I mean, you could still use your cell phone, you could still pick up the cell phone and just call them from a different number,
Right.
but yeah, Twilio won't let you engage with them anymore until they reply with start. So they can reinitiate the conversation, and it'll open the channel back up if they do that. And
Interesting.
then you have to have I call it wiring or plumbing. Like you have to have workflows in place in Highlevel to receive those start messages, and then disable D&D because like a lot of times when they reply start, like unless you have workflow set up to capture that, you're just not even going to know that that event ever happens. It's going to probably get buried in your conversation thread. So
Well, that's good to know. So right after you get approved, just go to the soft opt-out, and now it's not gonna, yeah, he said stop and cancel quit. Don't use those. Those are the hard ones. But we have to right
yeah,
now until we get
and
approved.
that I think, I don't know. I mean, I'm speculating like heavily here, but I think that like the window for us to use soft opt-out language might eventually close, because um Twilio might wise up to the fact that like people are trying to use different words and all that. But hey, in the interim period of time, like capturing it using that strategy, why not?
Mhm.
Let me see real quick. So Shane said, I'm just reading the chats. Just curious, very new, just based on today's content. If I was to create the blank master base from Extendly Small Business Snapshot, wanted to create a new sub account for a new user that wants to completely refresh their website and system, would I add both the blank snapshot and also a vertical snapshot for their field gym and build it from there? Is the idea of the small business snapshot that coexists alongside another snapshot? I'm gonna try to answer, Shane, and let me know if I miss it, or if this makes sense. But so the small business snapshot right now, when I say right now, I'm saying that because we're kind of going to be rolling out updated versions of that with automation library, and those are going to be modular in nature and designed in such a way to where you can kind of take like bits and pieces of it and put it into a client account. So that's like future state. Present state is that the small business snapshot is kind of like one big sort of like interconnected system. It's a bit difficult to like pull pieces out of it right now and put like pieces into a client account. But your question about like can it coexist with other snapshots? Like it totally could coexist with other snapshots. There is a few things to just be aware of though in the small business snapshot. There's a lot of like broad filter parameters set up in the workflows. And so, for example, like you might find an appointment trigger that's designed to fire on all appointments, or something like that, instead of like on a specific calendar. And so that's the only thing that sometimes makes it challenging for it to coexist with other snapshots is like once you put the small business snapshot in there, it kind of like not overtakes, but it's like it just has it has a tendency to affect like everything that's around it. But so to that point though, like putting the small business snapshot in its own blank account so that you can kind of like understand how it's working and all of that, especially if it's a new client, then it's like and there isn't any existing stuff in their account yet, then that's like kind of a perfect scenario, because you can just put it in there by itself and then sort of like add to it and test the pieces as you're adding to it and all that kind of stuff. Make sure that everything works, sort of piece by piece. But it's a little challenging to put the small business snapshot in a client account that already has like a bunch of stuff going on, because it can really impact what's already there, if that makes sense. And then Ray said, is there a site with all the info available? It would be easy to do an AI cinema analysis and catch the soft opt-out language. So I mean, all the info on A2P is on Twilio's website, and they've sent out like a bunch of emails about it. If you are interacting with Lead Connector directly, you may not have received those Twilio emails, but you can go to Twilio's website and they have like very granular documentation on all of the A2P stuff. And then on your comment about it would be easy to use cinnamon analysis to catch the soft opt-out language, I totally agree. And I think I mean, and as opposed to using like a soft opt-out word like out, you could just have a workflow that triggers on like a negative disposition. So like whenever someone replies negatively, like put that in its own, like either tag it, put it in its own pipeline stage. I think that's like a good practice for business owners to do anyway. Like if people are starting to get frustrated, like you should make yourself aware of those SMS conversations going on. And if it's looking like someone doesn't want to receive those messages from you anymore, like, by all means, like pull them out of the workflow before they just hard opt out, so soft opt-out word is like kind of like a way to like guarantee that there's not going to be any I guess malfunctions in the system. Sometimes like the sentiment analysis in Highlevel is like a little bit finicky right now. It doesn't always do what you like expect it to. So But it's a good like first step to send it over to like human review. You know, I tell people like to not take any like hard actions on sentiment analysis in Highlevel. But like if you take soft actions, meaning like you send it over to a human to figure out what happened after that, then there's no problem with doing that.
So we do have to set up all the opt-outs manually then using workflows essentially.
All the soft opt-outs, yeah. Yeah, because I mean, so in a workflow, you know, if it's sending out messaging, it's going to continue sending messaging until they're removed from the workflow. So they're either removed from the workflow, like you can turn on like a workflow level setting to stop on response. And so then any response will just stop the workflow. So that's one option, or you can listen for specific words, phrases, or like you can also pull them out of the workflow when they take certain actions, you know. So like you message them until they book an appointment. When they book an appointment, you pull them out of the workflow, you know. So there's a bunch of ways to pull them out of the workflows, but but a lot of times, like if somebody starts getting frustrated, you know, the problem is like they haven't taken the action that you want them to take, so they're not getting pulled out of the workflow that way, and so they just continue to receive messages until you you know, until you pull them out manually. And by
Right.
that point it's too late. Because if people feel like they're getting messaged from a computer, like they're not going to respond like a human. If they feel like they're getting messaged by a human, then they'll say, hey, I don't really want to receive these messages anymore. Great, I'll stop messaging you. But if they're like, man, it's just a computer sending me messages, then they're just going to be like, well, F this, and then stop, you know, and then it's all over. So
I did have one additional question for birthdays. If
okay.
we want to capture birthdays from like an existing database, what would be the best route to go in terms of getting that information? Like asking people to send their birthdays.
I mean, most businesses that are able to do that pretty successfully do it by offering free gifts for people on birthdays. Um, I mean, restaurants do that all the time, like get a free dinner on your birthday, and like that's like a way for them to solicit for birthdays, you know, and also a way for them to get you into their restaurant at least once a year, you know, because you're probably going to come back again if you're in there at least once. So, um,
So would it be set up as a form for them to fill out specifically, or like to
it
get
could
that
be,
information?
it could be a form. I mean, if they respond with just their birthday and like a specific format, like you could have it actually updated through the workflow. Like the workflow can update custom fields. But the only problem with that is like that works if they're like, yeah, like my birthday's, you know, 9/22/88. So if somebody's like, what's your birthday? 9/22/88, then it's like boom, then it can go into a custom field. But if they start being like, oh yeah, thanks for asking, my birthday is September 22nd, 1988, you know, then it's like the system's like, meh, I don't know what to do with that. So um so a lot of times though, you can just manually do it, you know. I mean, obviously that's like a little bit of effort, but it's like, hey, what's your birthday? They send the birthday back, you just manually go in and update the custom field.
Got it.
But you can also like if it is going to be a form, back to the free gift thing, you can just position the form as like a free gift. So, you know, it's like, hey, get a so and so for free on your birthday. Just punch in your birthday here, hit, you know, punch in your email address and hit send, you know, and then it'll just tie that form to their contact in the system as long as the email or the phone's there. And so you just kind of disguise the form as like a opt-in for a free gift, you know.
Yeah, I think that's the best route to go. Other than obviously, directly asking people.
Also, if you use a trigger link, then they don't even have to put in their email or phone. And so like if you make a form with a hidden field for email and phone, and then you use a trigger link, you could have the trigger link populate the email and phone. So it's like all happening in the background, and then all they have to do is put in their birthday. Um, I don't know if you have.
Interesting.
I can show you that real quick. I'll show you a little. Let's see. We're using that in. I know we have it in. And you can find this in the small business snapshot also, but this just uses like query parameters and a trigger link. So if you do like question mark first underscore name equals, and then a system field contact first name, and last underscore name equals system field. So what this is doing is when someone hits this trigger link, it's populating their first name and last name with whatever the system has. Or like if it already has an email, it's populating the email. If it already has a phone, it's populating the phone. So when you build a trigger link, you can do like a whole thing like this. And then this would be like the link to the funnel where the form lives, which is in a custom value. So it's like the custom value for the funnel, and then auto populate first name, last name, email, and phone if it's in the system. So then when they get to the form, then all those are hidden fields. So then all they see is put your birth date in. But in the background, that form has all their contact information in it. So that's how it ties it back to their contact, if that makes sense.
That's awesome. I didn't know that was possible. So does that work for like a texting and email, right? Wherever you put that trigger link, essentially.
Yeah, the trigger link, yeah, texting and email. Yeah, it has to come from either like a high level manual message or a high level workflow, because in both cases, like high level knows who it's going to exactly, and then there's a specific URL, like a unique URL that's generated just for that person. So
Gotcha. Oh, that's awesome.
all right, let me see if there's any more that they need for them. Yeah, so you could, to Heidi's point, you could use sticky contact if they've already filled out a form before. So the way sticky contact works in high level is if they've already been through any high level form, then like that info is kind of saved in the browser cookies for a certain period of time. There is a like limit on the amount of time it's saved in the browser cookies. I forget how long the attribution window is for that, but that might work also. Like the thing is like if you use sticky contact or something, then you would not want to make those fields hidden, because if for some reason they show up and the information's not populated, then they're going to have to still put in their email or phone. The only time that you want to make the fields hidden is if you're using query parameters like that, because then you can guarantee that you're always going to be passing an email or phone into the field. But if you fill out a birthday form without any contact information, then you're going to have a bunch of like weird contact records in high level with just birthdays and no names or emails or anything like that. So Dan said, quick question, are these coaching calls only available to our agency owners or to our clients as well? I mean, technically, I mean, yeah, I mean, they're being streamed in the Extendly group, so, and I mean, the Zoom link also doesn't change every week. So that being said, I mean, we do talk about Extendly and we talk about high level and all that kind of stuff. So like if you guys are okay with your clients knowing about high level, knowing about Extendly, all that kind of stuff, then yeah, you can absolutely bring them onto these calls. They're more designed for the agency owners and stuff like that. But if you're totally transparent with your clients in that way, then feel free to bring them on the calls. So
I have a question. If you on the A2P, if you have somebody that is a realtor, what should we be using as their email address? Because I know they're getting so picky with that. So if are they using their realty email? Because it's not really going to match their website. what suggestions do you have for that?
So there's a really functional answer to that question, which is basically if you use an email that's any different than the mailgun domain that was created. So if you do Highlevel's like hosted email service, then there's a like a little way to add your domain and all that stuff. So what's happening in the background is like Highlevel's going in the mailgun and they're adding all those records for you, like all the domain records. And those domain records, like SPF records, for example, DKIM records, those tell Mailgun like, hey, like there's no email spoofing going on here. It is actually coming from the domain that said it's coming from. So if they get in and they put like so-and-so at so-and-so realty.com, but the actual domain that's sending the email is like mg dot whatever their domain is.com or mail dot whatever their domain is.com, then they're gonna lose a few points on the email deliverability. And so that will increase the likelihood of the emails going to spam. But that has to do with any deviance, any deviation off of the actual domain that's being used creates that scenario. So if they have a really good email deliverability score, they can still spoof the email headers and like get away with it and the emails not go to spam. But if they're struggling with email deliverability as it is, then they would probably want to try to stay as close or just to use the actual domain that was allocated. If that makes sense.
So if they work for XYZ Realty and they have to have a website now, so it doesn't have to match the website. The website can be a different name because it's going to have to be different because it's a, like a realtor or something.
Yeah, so like I think we have email set up in this account. I'm not sure. Let me check. So if you go to settings, and you go to email services, like on the
We don't see
agency
anything
levels.
yet. We don't see anything, just black.
Oops. Let's share again. Here we go.
Yep.
Okay, so if you go to settings on your sub account, so
Mhm.
this is the sub account level,
Mhm.
and then you go to email services, like whatever domain is being used right here,
Mhm.
that's the domain that they want to use. So like they can do whatever they want. So they could do like, you're funny real estate agent at replies.extendly.com. Or they could do like, the sky is blue, at replies.extendly.com. Whatever the name is before the at doesn't matter. It just matters that what after the at symbol, the domain is the same as this, if you don't want to lose any points on deliverability. And so if you want to give them a custom domain that's like different from your agency level email domain, you can do that on a sub account level by clicking on this dedicated domain button right here if you're using the hosted lead connector email. And then you just have to go through the process of getting that domain set up and all that. And so like if they so like if I don't know if it's like Reese and Nichols or like Platinum Realty or whatever, like if they want to make a subdomain specifically for like a C name specifically for email, they could go in and create a C name that's like mail.platinumrealty.com, mail.reeseandnichols.com, and or they could even do like HL mail for Highlevel or whatever they want. They could still create like a branded C name record that is like a subset of their main domain that they use just for email.
Well, if they don't own the realty company and they're just a real estate agent and we have to set up a website for them, does it have to match that website or can it still, the email still go to their realty company's email address that they use all the time?
It has to match whatever domain is added here if you don't want to lose points on deliverability.
So if you set up a
So
domain, which we have to, so it has to match that exact domain right there
mhm.
that we set up. Okay, because I don't know what it is in there now. So lead connector, there was no domain in there before, so I don't know what lead connector has. They might have the real estate company's name that they work for, but once we set up a domain, this lead connector thing will switch or no?
Yeah, once a domain's been set up, then like,
Have a switch.
so for example, this is like our agency level domain for every sub account in this agency account by
Okay.
default gets this domain, unless we go in here and add a dedicated domain for the email, in which case like this sub account will then have a different email domain than all the other sub accounts. And so the only criteria for that is like you have to have access to whatever domain you're adding, you know. So a lot of times, obviously, the main real estate brokers aren't going to like allow domain access to any
No.
agents or anything. So a lot of agents have like websites that are like theirname.com and stuff like that. So they could just create a CNAME record that's like, you know, mail.theirname.com. And
Okay.
you could just use that, or whatever the website's going to be, you know, just create a CNAME record for the email. The CNAME, by the way, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, is this. That's what CNAME is. So it's like if their website domain is this, then what they need to do is like in their domain provider, they need to create the CNAME record, which is creating the replies CNAME record. It's just a record on the domain. And then that record gets pointed to Highlevel and will be used specifically for email with Highlevel. That makes
Even
sense.
www.
Well, you wouldn't want to use probably www, but www technically is a CNAME record, but you know, it's like a weird one because everybody redirects www back to the root being the naked domain, which is just this. Because occasionally you'll still get somebody, you know, like an older person that still types the www, and so you want that to redirect back to the naked domain. So anything else other than www basically is free game. So
I'm actually glad that we touched on this because this part was a little confusing for me. And I did set up, I guess, like a dedicated domain for business. But if we go back to the example of, let's say, like Platinum Realty, right? And they have like, let's say, one account, and the main email account is essentially info@platinumrealty.com, right? So I'm kind of confused on the subdomain aspect here because from what I've like learned, you need to set up a subdomain as like mail.platinumrealty.com, right? So when you're sending emails then from Highlevel to contacts, essentially if they respond back to that email, will that still be going to the normal domain, like their normal email?
so what happens, yeah, this part's confusing for people. So so when you go to send a message out of Highlevel, I don't think we have, let me see. Yeah, let's see. So email in the system. I'll just put myself in. Man, I have butterfingers today. All right. Waiting for my new contact to load up here. Yeah, it's taking forever. There we go. All right. So do you see right here when you're like initiating conversation?
Mhm.
So whatever you put here, so right now it says zach@getextendly.com. And so if somebody, so when that email goes out to somebody, like we were just looking at a moment ago, the actual email domain is replies.extendly with like a few i's.com. And so the fact that I'm not using that domain here means that when this email actually goes out, what's happening is something called email header spoofing. And so what's going to happen is it's going to look like it's coming from this email address. I'm going to get dinged a few points on the email deliverability because I'm spoofing the headers, the email headers. And so when you actually receive the email, like a lot of times most email clients like, Outlook and Gmail and all of them, pretty much, like this will show at the top, but there'll be like a little arrow to expand the email headers. And then you can actually see that it's not actually coming from Zach@getextendly.
So I literally experienced this. Yeah. And it has like a little I, an exclamation point, kind of like flagging it. It's interesting in Gmail.
Yeah, exactly. And so what happens when you reply to it is it's not actually replying to this email address, it's replying to the actual email address that it came from, which is like the mail domain full domain email. And so I kind of, I don't know, I've always thought like this setup in Highlevel is not that great for email deliverability because it by default puts the user's email address. So like the reason it put this in automatically is because my user in Highlevel, like if I go to settings and then I go to my profile, like that's my email. So when I go to send messages, it's going to drop that email in right away, which is unique for every user. And so that's great. It's just that creates email deliverability challenges.
So that technically is set up properly doing it like that then?
Yeah, because you the other thing is like the mailgun domain emails, like they don't receive just blind email. So like you can't just send an email to one of those. You can reply to them if you received an email first, but this email, in Highlevel gets used for specifically for authentication, like Highlevel all the time, due to two-step authentication will, when you're trying to log in, it'll be like, hey, one-time login code and all that. So if you use a mailgun email in here and you get to one of those two-step auth login things in Highlevel, like you're going to be kind of hosed because you can't actually log in then because you can't send yourself a one-time code. So I've tried to put like the mailgun domains in here, but then you can't log in. So it's a little bit of a weird spot. So like what I do a lot of times is just when I'm going this in a message, I just manually delete this. Like it's not a problem in workflows because in workflows you can tell it to use the mailgun domain all the time. It's only a problem when you're manually sending messages out that you have to go in here and delete this and then put in whatever the mailgun domain is instead. So
got it. And there's essentially no way to set it up. Like, can you set up the domain? You can't set up the domain to be like Zach@getextendly, right? To only use that to shoot, right? Because it has to be through lead connector or mailgun, right? So
yeah, and I mean, most companies already have email on their root with like Gmail, Outlook, or whatever.
Right,
so like
right.
those records are already being used on the domain anyways,
Right.
a lot of times. And a lot of times you also don't really want SMTP email on the root. You kind of want it going through a subdomain because like using Google Mail or Outlook on the root is pretty safe because like most other email clients are going to see that it's coming straight from like a Gmail server or like a Google Apps server, and it's going to appear pretty safe to them. But SMTP email is always more risky. So most bigger companies at least don't ever put SMTP email on the root domain because they could risk torching the root domain. Like occasionally you'll just get it blacklisted or something, when you're dealing with SMTP. And so you don't want to risk getting like your main domain, root domain blacklisted. So
Got it. That makes perfect sense. And I thank you so much, because I was really like wondering like how exactly that works. So yeah, I appreciate that.
yeah, no problem, guys.
So just to
Oh.
clarify, which is the best way to do that? Which way for the email?
I believe the best way is to definitely use a subdomain for the email, link the subdomain up to lead connector, and then use that domain in workflows when you're sending out emails. And then when you go to send manual messages, if you want people to still put their personal emails in there, you can. You're just going to get dinged a few points in deliverability. If you want to like maximize deliverability, then just have whoever's sending manual messages like delete out that, their personal email out of that, the from line, and put in the mailgun domain. And that'll help the deliverability a little bit.
Thank you.
And you guys can also, like, a really cool tool for checking email deliverability is Mail Genius. It's like a free tool. You can go and check your deliverability scores and stuff like that at Mail Genius. So
Oh, great. Thank you.
yeah, no problem. All right, guys, I'm gonna shut it down for today. I'll see you guys next Monday, though.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Have a good one. See ya.
Want to learn Go High Level in a structured format? Check out the GHLacademy.com by Extendly. We guarantee to save you 6 months of wasted subscription costs for High Level. Just visit the GHLacademy.com.